Well, no doubt you've heard the news that the Digital ID Bill is now before Parliament. It's being rammed through despite an enormous amount of concern being expressed by everyone from privacy groups to other decent members of our Parliament, one of which joins me today, which is Senator Ralph Babet. Senator, thank you for making time. You've got an incredibly busy schedule. We've got a very narrow window. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Stefan. Great to be on your show. Yes, a narrow window. I'm actually not in Melbourne right now. I'm somewhere in Australia. I'm not going to say where because of obviously security concerns, but I'm on the road right now, fighting the good fight, trying to defend our nation against tyranny.
Well, look, the government is saying this isn't tyranny. Have a look at the way they're promoting this new ID.
Constantly verifying your ID can be a hassle. Sharing your driver's license, proof of age card, passport, Medicare card, birth certificate and address details puts all that information at risk of falling into the wrong hands. But there's a solution that makes our lives a whole lot easier and our personal info a whole lot safer.
What problem could you possibly have with the idea that the government is going to take all of that information, centralise it into a single government-secured database and know everything about us?
Look, that is the problem right there, the centralization. Centralization in any sphere of human endeavor can always be a bad thing. If you centralize power in the hands of, let's say, a corporation, that corporation eventually ends up dominating the marketplace, and the person who suffers the most is the consumer because there is no choice, there is no competition. Very similar to this thing. If you centralize all your different forms of ID into one place, you give the government massive levels of power and control over your life. I think they have enough already. We don't need to give them any more. And the other problem as well is that just becomes a honeypot for hackers and things like this. All they need to do is go to one central place and they have your life. That's all they need to do. And we've seen with the Optus leaks and all the other government leaks which we've seen throughout the years that this can and it probably will happen. So I don't like the idea at all of government having a central repository of every single thing that makes you you. Yeah. Security issues aside, what happens when the government decides that you're no longer a good little boy or girl and they want to punish you? Well, it's going to make it a lot easier, isn't it?
Well, you're not a conspiracy theorist there, are you, Senator? You're starting to sound a little bit conspiratorial. I jumped onto the government's own website talking all about this, the digital ID legislation, of course, talking it up and talking how wonderful it's going to be. And I must say, I was deeply comforted by the bottom line here, the last of these points, assuring us that this scheme would be both voluntary and it would be inclusive. Does this give you any reassurance at all? Do you believe that this will be voluntary?
Well, I don't have to believe anything. I just have to keep reading the legislation. The legislation itself says that at any point, if they deem it to be appropriate, they can just flick their fingers and make it compulsory. So it's just absolute madness. Look, this is going to be about as compulsory as that thing that we all went through a couple of years ago where you couldn't leave your house, you couldn't go to the shops, you couldn't go to the local cafe to get a coffee and sit down unless you complied with the thing, right? I'm not going to say the thing because I don't want us to get cancelled on social media and have our accounts taken down, but you all know what that thing was. That wasn't compulsory either. Unless you wanted to eat food, unless you wanted to pay your rent, unless you wanted to pay your mortgage. Right? So this is what they are going to do. And it's not a conspiracy. It's right there in the legislation in black and white at any time. If they deem it appropriate, they can make it mandatory if they want. It's absolute madness. And of course, this legislation on its own, it's bad enough. But you have to understand the plan that the elites, the global elites, the globalists have for humanity moving on from here. This is just one piece in a bigger puzzle. The next piece, ladies and gents, the next piece is the social credit system. After that, you've got the central bank digital currency. These are all connected. Yeah. These things that we're seeing right now are not coming on their own. They're coming as part of a package. I'm just going to break off on a quick little detour right now. What is the central bank digital currency? You can think of it as similar to money that you already have in your net bank right now with one key difference. It's based off blockchain technology. What does that mean? It means that the government will be able to see exactly where you've spent your money. Okay, we all know that. they'll then be able to say to see what you spent it on, what you spent it on. So let's say you got a Coles, right? Or any other store where you do your food shopping. You go to that store, you purchase red meat. Okay, you're going to buy some red meat. You want to have a barbecue. Ding, 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 ding. Sorry, your card's been declined. Why has my card been declined? Well, according to our, central database system here, we can see that you have breached you've gone over your carbon quota for this month. You've gone over. And because of our commitments to net zero by whatever date they decide on eventually, let's say 2050, because that's what they're aiming for now. Let's say because of our commitments to net zero by 2050, you're not allowed to have red meat because red meat emits too much carbon in its manufacture. You have to eat the bugs this month. You can't have red meat. This is the power of CBDC. Now, once again, some people are going to say that's a conspiracy theory. All you got to do is go to the Reserve Bank's own website. They've just done a trial of central bank digital currency. This is going to come. This is essentially a mathematical certainty at this point because not enough people are pushing back against garbage like this. Now, you tie the digital ID with central bank digital currency, and then over the top of that, you put a social credit system on that. Now, people will say, oh, that's another conspiracy theory, mate. They already have a social credit system right now in China, whereby if you do something that the government deems inappropriate, what are they going to do? They're going to punish you. How are they going to punish you? By making sure your digital ID and your money, etc., don't work in certain places. I'll give you an example. Perhaps you go to a protest that the government doesn't approve of. Perhaps you go that, you hold up your sign, we demand change, government. We want change. The government says, no, we don't like that. They turn off your bank card and you can't buy or sell. Conspiracy theory, it's already happened. It just happened in Canada not long ago.
I was about to make the same point. I've seen it with my own eyes when I was in Guangzhou in China. It happened in Canada during the lockdowns, of course, there, the trucker convoy. And I would argue that the vaccine passport system that we had here in Australia was just simply a very simple binary social credit score type of system. Now, I've reached out to the Minister, Katie Gallagher, and I want to read the email that I've sent to her because I'm yet to have a reply, and I'm hoping you might be able to get an answer from her. So here's my email to her. I said, number one, what safeguards are in place in the legislation to ensure that private service providers do not themselves make the digital ID mandatory in order to access their services? Two, what inclusiveness measures, remembering they said it was going to be voluntary and inclusive, what inclusiveness measures have been taken to protect access to services for those who choose not to participate in the digital ID scheme? And three, if no measures have been taken either to bar service providers from making the digital ID mandatory or to ensure that service providers are inclusive of those who choose not to participate in the digital ID, then what does the government mean when it states that the scheme will be voluntary and inclusive? You'll be shocked to learn, Senator, that I have yet to receive a reply to my email.
Mate, Topher, I can't even get a reply from Senator Gallagher in the Senate, on the floor of the Senate during question time. All these people do is flirt around the questions that we all ask, and they are experts in non-answering. Now, Mr. Albanese, Prime Minister Albanese, when he came to power, he said, we're going to have a more transparent type of politics, a kinder, gentler politics. And what do? They've rushed through, I think it's about 127 new bills in the last year, 127 new bills with hardly time to even read through them, hardly any time to debate them properly and find out what issues these bills are going to cause in the future. They've come out and they've called the now I'm no fan of Peter Dutton, I'll make that clear, but they've come out and called Mr. Peter Dutton a pedophile protector. These are the kinds of people that we're dealing with right now. Now, Peter Dutton, he's many things, but he's certainly not a pedophile protector. I mean, come on. But this is the people that is running the show right now. This Labor government. The Labor government are nothing but a bunch of middle management type hacks. That's what they are. They are people who have never achieved anything in their lives of value. They've never created wealth. The vast majority have never run a business. They've never figured out how to pay taxes, how to balance books. And it is showing. These bunch of hacks. They have destroyed this country. They come out on TV and act like they are holier than anyone else. But when you go to the shops, when you open your wallet, you know exactly what's going on. Australia is a laughing stock. We've got weak beta male Anthony Albanese running the show. He doesn't have the kahunas to do what needs to be done to protect this country, protect this nation, protect our culture. I'm sick of these people. I have had a gut full of them. I want them all to go into the bin at the next election. Get rid of these people. It's time for change.
Senator Ralph Babet, holding back as always, keeping it under wraps. You never tell us what you really think. No, Senator, I couldn't agree more. I'm so grateful that yourself and a handful of other great people are in there fighting for us. Please keep up the good work. And if you do ever manage to get an answer from the minister, then please do let me know. And thank you in the meantime for coming on the Aussie Wire.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.